Hello, this is Yomatguram. The car we're going to look at today is one that you'll really have to think about if you're buying an electric car for the first time. Especially if you've chosen Kia, you'll probably have a hard time deciding whether to buy the electric vehicle 3 or the electric vehicle 4. So after personally driving both cars, I think you'll really wonder which one to buy. The stylish SUV style electric vehicle 3 or the lower sedan style electric vehicle 4. So let's check out the differences between the two cars together as we test drive them now. Alright, let's get started. First of all, whether it's a car or a person, design is really important. Some of you might say, performance is more important to me than design. But in the end, design still matters. Just by looking at the Santa Fe made by Hyundai and the Sorento made by Kia, you can clearly see how important design is. When the electric vehicle 4 was first revealed and people saw it in videos, about 8 out of 10 people said they preferred the electric vehicle 3 over the electric vehicle 4. But it's a bit different if you see it in person. I shared these opinions and showed it to various people, including my acquaintances. When I showed this car to ordinary people for the first time, their reactions were quite different from what I expected. Many who saw it in videos found the design disappointing, but those who saw it in person thought it was actually nice. Many people felt this way. Many people also liked the sharply dropping sleek coupe line at the rear. I'm not saying the electric vehicle 4 is better, it's just that seeing it in person is closely related to your personal taste, so I recommend you see it in person before making a decision. The electric vehicle 3 and electric vehicle 4 also have very similar front designs. And even though there's only a 1 number difference in their names at Kia, if you look at their segments, it's hard to say that they're completely a class apart. There's about a half-class difference between them, so what's important are things like driving performance, ride comfort, and space. The reason is, aside from these 3 things, it's hard to say there's a clear difference in other areas. Alright, then let me tell you about the driving performance first. The driving performance of the electric vehicle 4 can be described in one word: smooth. So when I first got in this car, I thought it felt a bit more luxurious than the electric vehicle 3. In a long-term test drive, I drove it about 1,000 kilometers. It's clear that the electric vehicle 4 is definitely a bit smoother, but I don't think I can say that the electric vehicle 4's driving performance is better or superior. There's a reason for that. This can vary depending on your preferences. If you're someone who usually enjoys fun driving, the electric vehicle 3 offers a bit more of that fun driving experience. If you just like smooth and relaxed driving, then the electric vehicle 4 provides a more suitable driving performance for you. There's a reason for that. First, these two vehicles. It's hard to compare a sedan and an SUV 1-to-1, but if you look at the grade, you could say there's about a half grade difference between them. First, there's a really big difference in overall length. If you look at the overall length, meaning the entire airflow of the vehicle, you could say this is more than a 1 grade difference. We don't buy a bigger car just because it's big, but because we want a more spacious interior. That's why we choose a larger vehicle. The wheelbase determines the interior space. When it comes to wheelbase, electric vehicle 4 is much more spacious, and of course, so is the interior space. I'll compare this for you in a separate video. For that reason, there is a difference in driving performance between the two vehicles. If we look at the 4 wheels touching the ground, the distance between the front and rear wheels is much longer on the electric vehicle 4. And the overall length is longer, but if you drive on a straight road, there isn't much difference. However, roads aren't always straight, right? There are curves, big turns, and roundabouts. And in these situations, the electric vehicle 3 with its shorter rear can get through more nimbly. On the other hand, the electric vehicle 4 has a longer wheelbase, so compared to the electric vehicle 3, it's naturally less agile. Even from a physics standpoint, it can't help but be a bit lacking in that area. Because of these differences, it depends if you want a more fun drive. For those people, the electric vehicle 3 would be a better choice. If you prefer a more relaxed and smoother driving performance, then the electric vehicle 4 might be a better option for you. That's why I mentioned this from the beginning. There's another difference as well. It's not just about handling. The car moves differently depending on road conditions. Rolling is moving side to side, and pitching is moving forward and backward. High rolling and pitching often cause more motion sickness. Another difference is the electric vehicle. 3 allows more rolling, especially in terms of movement. Although it's shorter, the electric vehicle 3 is slightly taller overall. Because of that, If you compare the front and rear, both vehicles have similar movement in the front, but when you look at the rear, the side-to-side rolling is a bit more pronounced in the electric vehicle, 3 compared to the electric vehicle, 4, and Korean consumers are very sensitive to ride comfort, especially because they tend to prefer a softer ride. You've seen that when vehicles made in Korea are exported to regions like Europe, they often get replaced with stiffer stabilizers, right? They reflect each region's preferences, but the electric vehicle 4's ride comfort is noticeably softer. When we say the ride comfort is soft, it means the suspension setup connected to the wheels is tuned to be softer. This suspension includes the stabilizer that connects the wheels and the springs that are on each wheel. It also depends on the characteristics of the shock absorber. The electric vehicle 4 is definitely a bit softer. Ride comfort is like the ends of a seesaw. This soft ride feels very smooth at low and medium speeds, but when you drive at high speeds, it causes a lot of up and down vibration in the car, which can even make you feel carsick. On the other hand, a firmer ride might feel a bit uncomfortable at low and medium speeds, but it provides more stable handling at high speeds. So you can't really say that one is definitely better or worse than the other. That's why features like electronic control and suspension are included. And in luxury vehicles, you get air suspensions that combine electronic control with air springs. The car I'm driving right now doesn't have electronic control suspension features like these. Learn how the two vehicles differ and test them yourselves. It would be good to check what differences there are. One of the most important checkpoints for electric vehicles is the driving range you can get on a single charge. To be honest, I was a bit surprised this time. The electric vehicle 4's official range depends on battery size. With the long-range model reaching up to 533 kWh, I always fully charge the battery for long drives. When I travel long distances round trip, it's usually about 300 km, sometimes 400 km. While driving, I rarely need to stop and charge due to low battery, but when it drops to around 50 km left, I start to feel anxious. I'm sensitive to that and lose my sense of ease. In other words, the process of traveling isn't comfortable. I test drove the electric vehicle for about a week and drove roughly 1,000 kilometers, and I fully charged it about twice during that time. I was surprised that although the official driving range is 533 kilometers, it can easily reach 600 kilometers. Recently, electric cars rated for 430 or 450 kilometers could actually achieve about 500 kilometers in real driving. The official driving range is 533 kilometers, but you can actually drive about 600 kilometers comfortably. That's only about a 100 kilometer difference, but whether you need to charge one more time or whether you feel stressed about the battery, this difference really surprised me, especially with the electric vehicle 4. It shows you the minimum and maximum possible driving range, and I found that you can trust these numbers to a certain extent. Even with good fuel efficiency, frequent 0 to 60 runs or driving at top speed can greatly reduce it. Realistically though, how often will you do 0 to 60 runs with a car you bought yourself? Because situations like that hardly ever happen. If it's about 600 kilometers, that's enough to go from Seoul to Busan with plenty left, so you can charge your car worry-free. So, if you happen to be on a business trip, you don't need to worry about having to find and use the charging station at the hotel first. This time, the iPedal 3.0 is even better. Remember this when buying an electric car. To boost electric car energy efficiency, if regenerative braking greatly boosts energy efficiency, new electric car drivers may feel dizzy or motion sick during braking. This phenomenon was noticeable in early electric global modular platform electric cars. But as more electric cars have been released, there have been continuous improvements in how smoothly regenerative braking works and in features that help reduce motion sickness. So if I tell you how to reduce motion sickness, for those of you whose children get car sick, it doesn't make sense for your family to suffer because of the regenerative braking in an electric car. Try setting regenerative braking to stop or 0 whenever possible while driving. And if that's not too much of a burden, you can adjust it to level 1, level 2 or level 3 and match it to your driving pattern. At level 1 it feels similar, but from level 2 you'll notice a difference. But with electric cars, the way regenerative braking works is that it activates depending on how deeply you press the accelerator and when you release it. In internal combustion engine vehicles, when you let off the accelerator, you would coast smoothly, but in electric cars, you need to be careful even when you release the accelerator. If you release it suddenly, regenerative braking kicks in abruptly. And since this regenerative braking acts just like a brake, it could make the people riding with you feel like they've been hit on the head. I'm just joking. To drive more smoothly, instead of suddenly releasing the accelerator, if you operate it gently, motion sickness in electric cars has improved a lot. I also noticed motion sickness changes depending on whether the car uses a front motor, rear motor, or both. This can also depend on your personal preference. Some of you might not feel any motion sickness at all. So, to sum it up simply for you, first of all, if I talk about the cars with the least motion sickness, cars with a single electric motor tend to cause less motion sickness than those with two electric motors. In other words, vehicles that have electric motors on both the front and rear axles and operate as all-wheel drive tend to cause more motion sickness. And between front-wheel motors and rear-wheel motors, it can vary depending on your preference, but for me, cars with front-wheel motors seem to cause less motion sickness. If you want to buy an electric car but are worried about motion sickness, it's not that all vehicles are like that. There are differences depending on the drive system, so I think it would be good for you to catch this in advance and make sure to test drive the car. One of the features that increases your satisfaction with the car throughout the test drive is quietness. So, how is the quietness? With no internal combustion engine like an electric car, it operates smoothly and quietly, but it would be disappointing if outside wind noise increased. The quietness of the electric vehicle 4 makes you feel like you're driving a luxury car up to 100 km/h. It's really quiet. The sound coming from the front, the sound coming from the side windows on both sides, and the sound coming from the rear window. Until you reach about 80 to 100 km/h, there's almost no stress from outside noise coming in. So if you drive an electric car, one of the things that might change is that you'll probably turn down the audio volume compared to usual, so you can listen to music more comfortably. And as I mentioned, the electric vehicle 4 is known to be relatively smoother. At speeds below 100 km/h, you get a smooth feeling, a comfortable ride, and outside noise is well blocked out. At this level, you might even think there's no need to envy the electric vehicle 6. On the other hand, the manufacturer has divided the grades perfectly, including the speed after this. For those who carefully consider things like a sense of luxury, the electric vehicle 4 and electric vehicle 6 are definitely cars with clear differences. The electric vehicle 4 features a Harman Kardon audio system. These days, Hyundai Motor Group does such a great job with their audio systems that no matter which car you drive, you can't help but be impressed. However, the audio playback capability of the electric vehicle 4 is just average. Other vehicles have been really good so far, so I mentioned recently that the audio in the ION IQ9 electric vehicle was better than expected. However, this car is an electric vehicle that's closer to the compact segment among electric vehicle S. As you can see, the 3 monitors and convenience features are nearly identical to those in higher-end vehicles. So you might think, wow, this is more than enough, but when it comes to convenience features like the audio, there is still quite a difference. You can consider the electric vehicle 4's audio playback similar to a compact car. There's nothing notably missing. However, for those of you who really enjoy music, it might leave you wanting a bit more. Other high-end vehicle manufacturers would probably say something similar. If you're planning to use this vehicle for family purposes, in addition to what I've mentioned today, you should also carefully check the braking performance. The braking, like the smooth settings, also operates smoothly. When I drove with 2 people and later with the second row full, I found that with 4 healthy adult men on board during the drive. In situations where you need a bit more firmness in the brakes, I thought the brakes could be improved a bit more. This part also depends a lot on personal preference, but when it comes to safety, I tend to recommend going above the standard. Especially when it comes to braking power, I think it should provide consistent firmness, whether one person or several people are riding. So I want to say that there is definitely a difference in braking power, depending on the segment. If you test drive it and feel that the braking power is a bit lacking, since this is a very important aspect, it would be a good choice to strengthen it further at your own expense. Since the other parts are high quality, the handling stood out as somewhat lacking by comparison. Hyundai and Kia have recently improved their handling significantly. Previously, column-mounted electric power steering and rack-mounted drive power steering were distinct, with rack-mounted drive power steering mainly in luxury cars. Now, even with R-type systems, differences exist between belt-driven and standard types. In this case, the electric vehicle 3 I'm driving is expected to have a C-type motor-driven power steering, and when I was driving, I felt that the steering didn't hold the center as firmly as I would have liked. Usually, when we're driving, how well the car maintains the center, meaning if it keeps the center well according to the road conditions, it feels relatively more stable. But if it doesn't, you end up having to hold the steering wheel and make small adjustments. This is called BOTA. Earlier, I mentioned that for those who enjoy a fun driving experience, the electric vehicle 3 might be a better choice. And for those who prefer a more relaxed and smooth style, the electric vehicle 4 might be more suitable. That's what I shared with you. The same goes for the steering wheel. If you usually pay more attention to the steering part while driving and want a more stable and agile sense of design, this would suit you. People like this should actually drive a better car, and from that perspective, this one might be a bit lacking. On the other hand, if you're driving a car of this class and don't have major complaints about the handling, then you probably won't have any big complaints about the electric vehicle 4's handling either. But this part depends on the class of the car. As cars have become electric, everything has become more refined, quieter, and smoother, so I wanted to explain these differences to you in more detail. For a thorough comparison of the interior space, I made a separate video. The electric vehicle 3 and electric vehicle 4 differ in that one is a sedan and the other is an SUV. And physically, the electric vehicle 4 is a larger vehicle. But when it comes to the interior space of the electric vehicle 4, there's nothing lacking. When driving a compact car, we often say it feels cramped. People also check the legroom. How does interior space compare between the electric vehicle 3 and electric vehicle 4? During my initial test drive, I repeatedly stressed this. There's a clear difference. I previously used a tape measure in the presentation, but now I'll measure both vehicles under identical conditions and provide detailed information on the exact difference. Now, electric cars are really improving a lot. Electric vehicle 3, electric vehicle 4, and electric vehicle 5 are expected to be released by year end. These vehicles feel more mainstream and smoother than traditional internal combustion cars. Without a transmission, they offer a luxury experience similar to high-end cars. Although there's an ongoing divide over electric vehicles in Korea, it's not happening at the moment. When you buy your next car, you might find yourself wondering, should I get an electric vehicle? That's why I wanted to give you some guidance on how to choose the right electric car. Alright, that's all for the video I prepared. Next time, I'll make a detailed comparison video between electric vehicle 3 and electric vehicle 4. This has been Yomut Gurium. Thank you. If this was helpful, please give it a like. Subscribe and turn on notifications to get accurate new car information quickly. Thank you.